Okay, so Jackson, we can go back and start the OBS again if you stopped it.
I don't know how to unsideways myself. Am I sideways now?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
There we go. It's back online.
So we're back live again.
Yes, we are.
All right. Thank you, Jackson, for all your efforts, and thank you, commission members, for your patience. I believe Ed and Karen, in that order, had their hands up.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. I was just circling back to that public restroom and the trees issue. I saw a photograph, and again, I'm not convinced those trees need to be removed. I don't understand why they can't construct that facility and still protect the trees. Again, without seeing the trees located on a site plan and seeing the construction drawing, it's hard to say. But again, this is to remind the city that there are ways to save trees in building construction. And I would think that a public restroom under the shade of mature trees is probably much more preferable than one out in the full sun. So I don't know which department's building it. I don't know where the plans exist, but I would like to see something that we could react to.
Thank you, Ed. Let me reach out to the city and find out the specific department involved, and I'll get as much information as I can and pass it on to the commission members. Karen?
Hi, yeah, thank you. That was along the same lines as my question. Just finding out more about who made these decisions and how we can work with them better, especially in light of the formation of the Urban Forest Master Plan and consideration of our public trees. So it'd just be great to have some line of communication with whoever's guiding these decisions.
Yeah, it would be, at least good in these kinds of projects if whoever's responsible could just automatically at least bring in Keith into the discussion. So let me do my intelligence work, and I will get back to the commission, if not between meetings, at least by the October meeting. Cecil?
Yeah, when I was on council, I tried to advance the idea of standalone toilets that are used in cities around the world. They take only the area of, I don't know, a toilet and a door, and they work well, and they don't need a big building. They don't need to take down trees. And I totally don't get why 10 years later, the city is still trying to build buildings for toilets when, especially in this case, you can walk about 2 blocks and there's a public toilet already. I'm baffled. I'm really baffled.
Thank you, Cecil. Chardon?
Yeah, I'm also baffled, by this project, and the proximity to the other bathrooms is a good point, Cecil. And I too think that if this project goes forward, it's a good opportunity to build around trees responsibly. But I also wanted to call attention to the state of the trees. While they have green canopies and they appear to be growing well, they have a lot of stem girdling roots at the base of them, and that's a result of a combination of being planted too deep and or being over mulched. And I just want to call attention to that because it happens very, very frequently in this town that trees are planted incorrectly and they're over mulched. And this is it's going to be an issue for these trees, even if they are saved, that their stem girdling roots are going to have to be cut, or they're going to result in tree decline and tree death. So just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. And it does seem like they're sort of planted a bit too close together. The tree canopies are sort of interlocking, and probably would have been better to spread them out a bit.
Yeah, or maybe have like a large maturing tree with a smaller tree.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Mark?
I was just looking back through my emails and find that Susanna Horton is the project manager. She works in capital projects for Parks and Rec, I guess. So that would be the city staffer you'd want to reach out to for details, Patrick.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Nancy, do you have anything you want to add beyond the graphic report on the tree canopy preservation ordinance?
No, I don't have anything else to add.
Does anybody have any questions for Nancy? Okay, if not, let's move on to old business, and we have the working group updates, and we'll start with the policy working group. Ed?
Yeah, I don't really have anything new to report this month, Patrick.
Okay, I just will mention for the sake of the other commission members that we're very close, apparently, on having full approval with the city on the amendments to the tree canopy preservation ordinance, with the exception of boundary trees, and we're waiting for some kind of feedback from the legal department on whether or not the city has jurisdiction on requiring developers to notify property owners of that have boundary trees of a development project. I understand that we're also very close on the tree planting requirement amendments. There's just a few internal staff issues that need to be ironed out. And then I hope we can get back on track with the Chapter 20 amendments, so that we can bring all those to the city council either by the end of the year or certainly by the first of next year, sort of as a package. So are there any questions or comments? Yep, Sharon.
On the update to 719, have we seen the final that staff is working with? Are they working with the changes? We'll get it back again and see it and then have comments on that. What's the order? Because I'm still waiting for my responses on building impact and increase in what trees they're going to add for tree protection if they take out building impact. I'm waiting for that kind of response.
You're referring to Chapter 711.
Yeah, which is
719.
tied. Yeah, which is tied into 719, both of them, because the 711 with a lack of building impact, and then there was stated that 719 would then increase their percentage of what's going to be saved, but neither one is that. I haven't seen the 719% changes tie into the lack of having building impact in 711.3.
Well, to answer your first question, yeah, everything will come back before the commission before anything moves forward.
Okay, Yeah, that's what I figured. Yeah.
And the relationship between the two, something that perhaps Vidila can address if he's still online. It looks like he is.
I can say something. We can, I thought we shared that already, but I can make sure that I go over it and get that back to you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you shared it, Vidila. I just haven't seen it in writing on what the percentage is going to be in relationship to the lack of removing building impact. I haven't seen what you verbally stated, but I'd like to see it in writing so I can prepare or understand percentage of increase to loss of building impact.
Right. I'll button that up and get it back so it's clear for you and the commission to review.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vidila. Thank you, Sharon and Ed. Urban Forest Master Plan, Zoe.
Yes, and we've been meeting with Keith at mid-August to look at the Knoxville Urban Forest Master Plan as maybe a guidance for where we want to go. They're about a year ahead of us, and we met in mid-August with a representative from the Urban Canopy Works who guided us through the process that they used with that contractor. And for me, it kind of clarified some of the things that we need to think about next specifically, such as the precise scope of our inventory and whether we want to issue separate RFPs for the inventory and the actual planning. A big part of the Knoxville plan is the community workshops, which are very impressive to me. The scope of the workshops they did, and from which they got most of their goals. That they haven't actually released their actual goals yet. But on the 14th, we are going to meet with two representatives from Trees Knoxville, which is a nonprofit that instigated their urban forest master plan. And, you know, that whole structure is a little bit different from ours, but I see Knoxville Trees and Greenworks as playing analogous roles. So it's very exciting to me anyway. Do any of the other working group members have some input on that? Ed?
Yeah, no, you've covered it well, Zoe. Thank you. It's just, we're fortunate to have Knoxville to look to because they're so similar to us in terms of demographics and geography, that we've sort of adopted them as the Urban Forest Master Plan sister city, as we can learn from their experiences and move forward with this. So we're having some good dialogue with the folks over there. And I see a road trip in our future to go out and visit them and see it firsthand.
Thank you, Ed. Zoe, are there any questions for the Urban Forest Master Plan Working Group?
There was actually one aspect of it that came up that I had not expected, which they, Rachel Compte from Urban Canopy Works also mentioned that besides developing the Urban Forest Master Plan, they helped develop a management plan for the city of Knoxville that directly supported the work of the urban forester. And I think that that's a really important aspect to what we're doing that we may not have really talked about before, but it lays out what the scope of the urban forester's work is and usually recommends more staff support for that person.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Sharon?
Go ahead, Ed.
Go ahead, Ed.
I was going to say, if I could add, they use the Planet Geo inventory database management system as their platform and can build the urban tree database into an asset management system, into a city's municipal asset management system. So our conversation connected a lot of dots, answered a lot of questions that we had about inventorying the trees, using the inventory data to generate a master plan, building a management database, and tying that into asset management systems. So it could really move us into a state-of-the-art management program. So it was good conversation.
Thank you. Sharon?
Sorry.
Yeah, I just got a weird question. How many pages is their master plan? I mean, how dense is this? Are we talking 20 or 200?
It's still a work in progress. I think
Knoxville's is still a work in progress.
yeah, they're still a work in progress. They're about a year ahead of us. They're, as Zoe mentioned, they're being very thorough with community input. It's a big part of their planning process. And, I would say that they probably will have an executive summary that's in the 20-page to 30-page range, and a comprehensive plan that's probably 3 times that size.
Mm-hmm.
You
I
can
was forward to seeing that. Yeah, thank you. Can you get it online?
Yeah, you can just Google it. A lot of their present plan consists of their enormous and impressive advisory board, which I think is probably something that will also happen here, and that's largely what the contractors have been working on for about a year, is getting this buy-in and educational capacity of these meetings, which I think is really important.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. The appropriate species list. Karen, do you have any update?
We had a meeting with, I met with Chardon and Keith a couple weeks ago, and we created a list of suggestions, and it sounds like Vidilla is also creating an appropriate species list. So we're trying to hopefully collaborate and not double up on our efforts. Yay, Vidilla's on the phone. He's on the call. All right, let's hear what Vidilla says.
Yeah, hey Karen, just a correction. I with others in this landscaping subcommittee started looking at the recommended list that Ed and others suggested we change and call it the appropriate species list. So we've been working on it for a while, doing a lot of updates, and then most recently, Keith, I think, is sort of taking it over. So I think what you can think of is that you guys are taking over what we've done, and you run with it as you will. I mentioned to Keith just a hope that we at least maintain some of the adjustments that we made, because there was a lot of thought that went into them. In particular, adding trees that are prohibited for certain applications, in particular parking lots, because in some places like parking lots, we really want canopy trees that provide shade, and there are certain species that are heavily being used because they don't provide canopy, and I think a lot of retailers prefer that to not sort of block the signs and things. So that was my only request, but I don't think we should have two things going. So you guys do with that as you may, and we'll just chime in if I could have a look at it before it gets approved, and just I'm sure if Ed's involved, there's a couple other people I've been working with just to make sure that they're ultimately have a review of it. But why don't you guys just take over it basically at this point?
Keith?
Yeah, I'm currently in the process of combining those lists with a list that we had come up with, Chardon and Karen and I, and I'm hoping to get that out here in about 10 days and let people review it and look it over, see if there's any changes, and then my goal is to have it finalized by the end of the month.
Thank you, Keith. Are there any questions for Karen? due to an oversight, the enforcement policy or the enforcement working group isn't listed. But Cecil, is there any update?
We have kicked things around. Karen has been the most helpful in looking at how we might enforce. Let me see. There's gosh, I had notes here. Okay, I'm going there. Karen had a couple of ideas about how things could be enforced better, and I had a thought about enforcement. And I'm sorry, I'm blanking on it right now, but I'll come back in a minute. Karen, how about you? Your thoughts on this?
Well, we had talked about one option would be finding out the best, easiest way for our public works director or whoever is issuing violations regarding trees being taken down on steep slope or et cetera, how we can add more transparency to that process so that as a communication, awareness, and also sort of an educational tool so that people can understand the process better and there can be more consistency.
Yeah, now that you've said that, it seems like if we had somehow more consistency regarding steep slopes, that would help. Sorry, I've lost the page. Okay, here I am back to this page. That if somehow when building permits were enforced on steep slopes, wouldn't it be useful for the purchaser of a steep slope property to be informed at that point that there are rules regarding the trees? And that's my thought. Yeah.
Sharon?
If I could chime in a perfect world, yes, Cecil, they are. They're when they talk to the planner, if it's a level 1 or any type of application, it is notified. They notify the person that's doing the application that they are on steep slope A or B, and certain things are required. What I was trying to get done when Ricky Hurley was in zoning is to have a big black stamp that went at the bottom of the plan, steep slope, so that when it followed it through to the developer, that everybody realized it was steep slope A or B. But I'm going to say it's gotten a lot better than how it used to be, but the planners will pretty much advise the people that are applying for a permit that it is on steep slope zone A or B. And it's just a matter of getting the inspectors trained on what that looks like. So when they go out and inspect it, that they can see that if it's a violation on this area and they're aware of what that looks like. So in my world, when I was spending a lot of time on it, the breakdown seems to be occurring on the inspection side of things and not on the planning side of things.
Thanks, Sharon. Yeah, thank you.
Keith?
Yeah, having gone out on several inspections and some phone calls and that sort of thing, the breakdown isn't necessarily the developers or the builders. The breakdown is once the realtors sell to the actual home buyer. So that information is not being passed along for those people who live in the steep slopes. And so I would say, and I'm not going to say everyone's like this, but at least the homeowners that I talk to have no idea about what they can and cannot do on their property, and they're being told something completely different, apart from the developer and the builder on the project. It sounds like. I was on a couple 2 weeks ago, and that was pretty much the whole point of it. Is that the homeowners just don't know. They don't have any idea. People are telling them they can and can't do things and cannot do things. And, I think that's where we're losing it, not necessarily inspectors, because I think the inspectors are doing their jobs. It's just the home buyers.
Videla? Wait a minute. Videla?
Just to chime in, I had to put together a steep slope layer for the GIS recently for this missing middle housing project for our consultants. And while I was doing that, it occurred to me that, this isn't public information. Everybody has to find out whether they're within the steep slope based on their own parcel. So we could take this layer, refine it, and put it out on an app so that everybody can access it and know more easily whether they're in one of those zones.
Thank you, Videla. Sharon, and then Cecil.
Yeah, in response to Keith. So 6 years of me being involved in, as you all know, steep slope. We've got the ones that the houses are already built and they're going to go out and want to do something, and they don't know that they can't do it or they can do it because they were not aware, in Keith's point, from the very beginning when they moved in. Then we've got the people that are moving into steep slope that are building the house that have to file for the permit application. And they don't know from the realtor when they bought it that they were going to be under all kinds of constraints before they built it. And they find out when they go do the permitting application. And then they try to live within the gradients that they're having to do, depending on whether they're A and B. Then you've got that group of people that aren't aware. And then you've got the inspectors that go out and look at it that don't necessarily know that they can and they cannot do. They will know the grade for a driveway. They'll know how the house should sit, but they won't know about the trees and the critical root zone and how that sits. Now, I do know that we're in the process of retraining inspectors. So in my 6 years of dealing with this all the way down the line has been breakdowns for of people not understanding in each little individual pocket. And as Videla stated, if we could get all that information in one area, then we'd have more people more informed in every step of the way of where it's not working.
Thank you. Cecil, and then we need to move on.
Yeah, my question would be, how can we possibly impose this awareness on purchasers of real estate in our city? How can we somehow make this a part of the plan? I don't quite see how we can do that.
Well, I could suggest that this working group think this through and identify the appropriate city staff to consult with. Okay. All righty. Zoe, missing middle housing, do you have any update?
We got a barriers and analysis report on August 27th. July 27th. And we were asked as the advisory group to submit our a survey about that after we had read it. And I went to the public meeting on the missing middle housing on the 4th and submitted my comments, I think around the 6th of August. And the only thing I saw in there, the tree ordinance was not in there anymore as a possible barrier. nor are the landscape requirements. The only thing that was in there that I saw and commented on was the requirement for a 20-foot barrier between RS and RM. That's single family and multiple family housing. The possible reduction or removal of that 20-foot buffer, I wrote an opposing comment about that. That I did not find that to be something that I would agree with as a council, as an advisory council member.
Any questions for Zoe? The Missing Middle Housing Advisory Committee, which Zoe and I are both on, should receive the draft Missing Middle Housing recommendations from the consultant Opticos around September 20th. And we'll have 2 weeks in which to review and respond to that draft recommendation. And so I'm sure that Zoe will probably have something to bring back to the commission in the October meeting. Moving forward, legislative update. I think at the last meeting I mentioned these two proposals that are advancing through the city system by Barry Bialik, who is a local developer of affordable housing and was a former chair of the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, one dealing with flag lots, the other with cottage clusters. And his idea is to make some changes that would open up more parcels for the development of affordable housing. However, his two proposals could have an impact on tree loss in the city. I'll just briefly mention cottage clusters because it's the easiest one to understand. Right now, under parcels that are zoned for cottage clusters, the minimum number of units are 5, and both under the state subdivision statute as well as and reflected in the tree canopy preservation ordinance, cottage cluster developments would be subject to the tree canopy preservation ordinance. The proposal would be to reduce the minimum number of units to 2, and that potentially could remove the tree canopy preservation ordinance applicability to that kind of development. On the flag lot proposal, this gets more complicated, but there are certain changes being proposed that would make it easier to build single-family units on flag lots. And flag lots are usually a lot behind a lot that has a street frontage, usually owned by the same property owner who has subdivided the property into 2 parcels. It's more complicated because the state law regarding subdivisions is not settled law, so it's not clear whether the tree canopy preservation ordinance would apply to that. Currently, under the tree canopy preservation ordinance, any units subdivided less than 3 would not apply. So the Planning and Zoning Commission took up these 2 proposals last month. They recommended approval of both, but they took the unusual step of sending the flag lot proposal to the city's technical review committee for study. And the technical review committee, I believe, discussed that on September or on the 25th or in August, and gave a preliminary recommendation to reject both. However, the Planning and Urban Design asked for a continuance because it's trying to work out a alternative proposal for flag lots. But I've asked Vidila to come here and sort of briefly give us an update. And I would like to bring this back to the commission in the October meeting and ask the commission to take a position on both of these proposals that we can air when it comes to the city council. So, Vidila?
Okay. Admittedly, this is confusing and it's difficult to shed light on it without visuals and a more prepared discussion or presentation. I think what I can say is that the city has a process by which the public can request changes to the code. And so we have a developer of single family housing who is proposing to change the code who is recommending that the minimum flag lot be significantly reduced. Today, we require that a flag lot has at least 20 feet of frontage. So if you can imagine, there's 20 feet of frontage, and then it goes into the back of somebody's property, and then it flares open where there's a larger piece of property that can build a house. Because of that requirement, we don't get many of them, and there's a good reason, because flag lots can be problematic. So this single family home developer would like to reduce that at 5 feet wide. And so we're trying to figure out what the impacts would be. And as Patrick mentioned, some of the impacts that most relate to what you're reviewing are sort of unsettled legally, and it's confusing. So we're trying to get a stronger sense of I think what the city feels comfortable with, and that'll determine our position on this. I do want to say that the timing is somewhat unusual because we're just finishing up with this missing middle housing study, which we should have the final report at the end of this month. So by the end of this month, we should know what the consultants are recommending for housing. And it may be the case that the better recommendations would not be to start by changing flag lot standards, but they may be something else. So we're trying to figure out how to approach this because of the timing and different aspects. So I would like to say that we can come back with more clarity in a month that would give you a better picture of what the real issues are, what the possible impacts may be, and if we don't recommend moving forward with flag lots, what other policies for housing we think make more sense at the time. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Patrick.
Thank you, Vidila. Are there any questions from anyone? Sharon?
Yeah, I was at that at that TRC meeting, and there wasn't one department that agreed with the flag lots as it was laid out. And it was several pages long. I don't know, Patrick, did you see the staff report on it?
I didn't see it, but I heard about it.
Yeah, and so then in the political discussion of it, cottage clusters did not come up. Only flag lots came up. Cottage clusters have already been approved. And what Mr. Balick said is that he got approved on the cottage clusters with he and Shannon, and they worked it out and they got it done, and he wanted this done in the same conciliatory way. And isn't there a way that we can all get along and find some way that this can work out to create affordable housing for everybody concerned? And then a staff member stepped in and said, well, we can think about how we can work this out together offline and change maybe some of the language as he presented it so it could be something more equitable for everybody. And my response, which was I made the response on the trees. I was told that it's not applicable because it doesn't affect on the flag lots due to, I said for the fact that we had the potential on flag lots because it's easement sharing. So you've got them sharing the same driveway. You got a house over here, and a lot of time flag lots are empty areas that are green space. But it will not, it does not constitute that way in reading 719 or 711, only if there's building on them. It's a conceptual thing as opposed to an actual thing. So in the heat of the moment, I said, it has the potential of reducing our tree canopy without knowing whether it did or didn't. And so it's a conceptual thing, not a real thing. But a lot of what the building department statements and a lot of what addressing especially stated is that it's going to be a major nightmare if this type of flag lots that he is proposing go through. It's going to change so much in the building department and so much in the addressing department. It's going to be completely overwhelming on the system. So now they're back to the drawing board to figure out how he can get what it is he's looking for and work within the parameters of what the city requires. It was a complicated TRC meeting.
Thank you, Sharon. And I believe the TRC is going to take it up again on September 25th. The cottage cluster, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval, but it has not gone to City Council yet. So
it didn't even go to TRC. Only flag lots did.
Correct. So the October meeting, Videla can come back and give us a more updated and detailed information on it. In the meantime, I may try and get some kind of legal reading from the law department regarding the unsettled legal aspect of the state's subdivision law. And then we can have all that information in for the October meeting and make an informed decision on if we want to take a position and what that position would be. So thanks, everybody. Thank you, Videla. Just a reminder, I put together a draft PowerPoint presentation report for the City Council's Environment and Public Safety Committee. And I will be delivering that on September the 26th at 10 a.m. And I will send it around to the commission so that they get a chance to take a look at it before I submit it. One last thing. I don't know why Keith was left off on the staff reports. But Keith, did you want to give an update, or did you want to just send an update via email?
Yeah, I'm gonna send an update by email. Just do written comments. I was gonna pass anyway for staff report this month.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the agenda. And with 10 minutes to spare. So good job, Urban Forestry Commission members. Appreciate that. So if there are no objections, I will declare this meeting adjourned, and I will see everybody in October.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.